Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a heat map in R. Now, this is a fairly detailed heat map. It's somewhat complicated to do, so we're going to do it in steps. And I'm going to show you how to get the data, wrangle the data, and then visualize it. Again, there's several different steps. I was inspired to do this. There's another data scientist named Matt Harrison, and he did one in Python, and I thought it was really cool. So I've sort of redone it. This is very slightly different than his, but I've redone it here using ggplot and dplyr. And I think it's a good exercise to sort of go through and see exactly how you would do this. It integrates a lot of different dplyr and ggplot functions and techniques in somewhat of an intermediate to advanced way. So it could help you learn how to sort of put the pieces together. Okay, let's get started. First of all, we need to get our packages. We're going to use the tidyverse. We're also going to use rvest to quote unquote harvest the data. We're going to scrape the data from a Wikipedia page. So there is a page on Wikipedia, and if you check that out, you'll be able to see that there is some sort of ranking data about presidents. This is the table that we're actually going to be working with. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the URL, store it as a name. Then we are going to read the HTML. We're going to pull out the tables and then pull out the third table and essentially turn it into a tibble and then give it a name. I am calling this Pres Expert Pull Data Raw, calling it raw because we are going to wrangle that further. Okay. We can inspect, a quick print. You can see that we've got a data frame. We've got these column names. Everything is character data. There's some missing data. So we're going to have to clean this up a little bit. That's the next step. You can also see if we take a look at the names of the columns, these don't really make sense. And if you look at the data from Wikipedia, there's an actual key. So we're going to have to recode all of that. Okay. So next, let's wrangle our data. We're going to take this data, this raw data. We're going to rename some of our columns. So seq means sequence. We're going to call that order. We're going to rename president, lowercase, and political party to party. We're going to pull out the order data. So this is the sequence, but for one of them, and I think that is, if we take a look, that's Grover Cleveland. He's got two different numbers there. That's really not going to do. We want to turn that into an integer. It's going to be easier to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip out or substring this to only pull out the first two digits and treat that as 22 instead of 22, 24. We're just going to treat that as 22. So we're substringing, turning it into an integer, putting it back into order. We're going to drop any missing data. Okay, so if we actually run this, you can see it. If we run this, it's not doing it in place. So it's creating a new data frame. You can see some of this. We have the order data, but there's missing data now. So we're going to drop NA. Then we're going to pivot this. You see all these columns. These are actually metrics. We want to turn this from a wide format to a long format. So we're going to put all of these column names and turn those into values in a new variable that we're going to call metric. So this is the metric name, and then the numbers underneath each of these existing columns, that's going to be called ranks. We're creating a new set of variables, metric and rank. And if you run that, you'll be able to see it. Okay, so you just run that, it outputs to the console, and you can see now we have metric and rank, okay? we're going to reformat the rank variable as an integer. We're using mutate to do that. And then we're going to recode metric. Okay, you see all these abbreviated metric names. We're going to recode those. We've got that right over here. The key is on the Wikipedia page. So I just took that and just sort of plugged it into a recode statement. And we're going to rename all those values. And then the output of that long chain is going into pres expert poll data. So let's run it. Okay, it's giving us a couple of errors, but really that's mostly from, I think, this mutate statement. It's actually not a big deal because we dropped the NA values that were produced. So now let's print that out. And you can see that it is nice and tidy. There we go. So we have an order variable, an integer, president name, the party, the metric name, background, party leadership, handling of the economy. You're going to see all this in a second. And then the ranking for that president. So this is in tidy format. If you don't know what tidy format is, you can look it up. Okay, so now we are going to very quickly get the order for the metric values. So these metric value names, the category names, there's a sort of order to these. We're going to use distinct and pull. We're going to pull this out, which turns it into a list. And then we're going to save that as metric order. You'll see in a second why we're going to use that. And now we're going to create the heat map. So this is the final output. So what are we doing here? So we have our data. The output we've actually called pres expert poll data. Okay, different from the original poll data raw. We renamed it poll data. Okay, so we have a separate data set. We're actually using this mutate statement. This is for the text color. This is a sort of indicator of, not really a flag, but it's a variable that's going to store the hexadecimal color values. And you'll see that this means that for high rank, so for 40s, 50s, etc., the text color is going to be white. For these lower ranks, 1s, 2s, 10s, the text color is going to be black. It's actually not black. It's a very dark gray and off-white. So we're using a mutate statement to essentially build a new variable that we're going to be able to use and tell ggplot the exact color. So then we're calling ggplot. We are putting president on the y-axis. We're putting metric on the x-axis. The fill, okay, the color inside the heat map is being dictated by the rank variable from our data set. We're using geom tile to create the heat map. And then we're using geom text, and the text label, the actual text that's going to be inside the heat map, is the rank value. But the color is coming from text color, which we created with a mutate step. So this is a very clever way of, you can do this for highlighting and conditional color manipulation inside of a visualization. And then the rest of this stuff, a lot of this is really just about formatting. So we are going to use the Viridis, actually the magma color scale. I'll talk later about why. We're going to reverse this, a reverse magma color scale. Okay, scale color identity is actually for this text color. And then we are reordering the x-axis values. The x-axis values, we got that order previously. And then we are creating the title. We're removing the X and Y labels, the text. We're putting in a title. And then we're changing some stuff about the text. So we're angling the x-axis text. Okay, we are justifying it to the right so that these labels line up along the columns. We're changing the y-axis text size, changing the text family to Avenir, and then we are changing the title text. So if you run all of this, you can see, so we've got our heat map. So you can see that the numbers inside the heat map are conditionally formatted. It's dark against these light cells, and it is white or off-white against these very dark cells. Again, we did that with our text color variable. And then we have magma for the color scale. We have our title. We have all of this other stuff. We have the formatting of the text down here. So you can see that we've actually done quite a bit. We had to do a lot of data wrangling and a lot of formatting for the visualization itself. This is not terribly easy to do, but there's only a couple of functions that are really doing most of the heavy lifting. You can get probably 70% of the way, 60, 70% of the way here without a lot of the extra formatting with only a handful of things. So it's, as always, sort of 80-20. Now, one comment on the color scale. The original color scale and the one that inspired me was a red-blue color scale. Now, red-blue is not bad, but in my opinion, this magma color scale is a little bit better. And the reason is that it draws your eye to the best values. So the ones and the twos, the highest rank. So the overall highest rank president, Roosevelt, Lincoln. Okay, we've got some ones up here for luck, for Washington. So we've got these bright yellow lines, okay, and then some brightly colored cells up here. So you can see the very highly ranked presidents, and the color draws your eye in almost immediately. For the dark cells, we see, for example, Buchanan and Johnson, okay? You can see the sort of bad values, and they fade into the black, but it's also very easy if you're looking for the low values, you can look for the dark values. And this is very easy for your brain to sort of distinguish between the light and the dark versus a red-blue diverging color scale. It actually sort of hides some of the information because you have a lightness peak right in the middle at 25. I won't go into too much about color scales here, but the way your brain interprets those, it's very difficult to interpret some of that information if you're really looking at good, bad. This sort of sequential color scale, like magma, Viridis, I actually tried out. It's not quite as good. And plasma, Viridis, plasma, and magma are all related. I liked magma the best. If you want to do something different, try another one out. So hopefully this helps you understand exactly how you can take something sort of from end to end, pulling the data, getting it using Arvest, wrangling your data into shape, doing a couple of extra manipulations, and then doing some fairly detailed data visualization with a lot of modification and formatting in order to create something that is fairly polished. Now, there's probably some other things that we could do. I could probably manipulate the text sizes a little bit, maybe change some of the fonts and stuff, but this is 97% of the way there. And if we really wanted to make it perfect, I'd probably just ship it off to a graphic designer and get it off my plate. So if you have any questions about this, leave a comment. If you like it, let me know. Leave a like. I'd love to hear your thoughts.